Today on Listen Up, the poor have always been with us, but people who care are getting creative. Creative solutions to alleviate poverty, next. Welcome to Listen Up, the show that explores current affairs from a Christian perspective. I'm Lorna Duick. Today, one of God's biggest public relations challenges. Where is God when children go to bed hungry or die of curable diseases? According to the World Bank, extreme poverty rates have declined substantially around the globe, but the number of people at risk of falling into poverty has increased. Today, we'll look for some answers. But we'll begin with the controversial. Dambisa Moyo is an international economist who comments on global affairs. Born and raised in Zambia, Time magazine calls her one of the world's top 100 most influential people. She thinks the way to overcome poverty in Africa is by cutting off Western aid. Dambisa, thank you very much for being with Listen Up.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great line you've got in your book, that capitalism has fed and watered the world. But yet 1 billion people go to bed hungry tonight. You think we should cut off all aid to them. Why?
Well, clearly aid hasn't worked in delivering economic growth and reducing poverty, which were the two key fundamental origins of why we were going to give aid in the first place. Today people say, oh no, but girls are going to school, we're providing a scholarship, or I've built a well. Those are all band-aid solutions. The United Nations estimates that Africa, for example, and many other developing countries need to grow at 7% a year in order to meaningfully put a dent in poverty. We will not get 7% a year by providing short band-aid solutions in the form of the aid that is going to African countries today.
You described the aid that church groups give. In Canada alone, there's 12,000 charities sending money overseas. You call that cheap beer, cheap money for beer or something like that. You want it stopped within 5 years.
Well, let's just clarify. There are three types of aid. There's humanitarian aid, which is a type of aid that goes forth as a calamity, whether it's Katrina or Pakistan floods or a calamity in Mozambique, for example. I'm not talking about that type of aid. The second type of aid that you're talking about is charitable aid, which is NGO aid. Again, I'm not talking about that type of aid. That's relatively, what I said was small beer. It's small money. People sending $20 for a girl to go to school, send $10 for somebody to build a well. That is not going to create economic growth. There are 1 billion people on the African continent. 60% are under the age of 24. They need jobs, they need economic improvements. That is not going to come, no matter how much we would like it to, it's not going to come from generosity of sending $20 for a well. And then the third type of aid is the one that I really do criticize, and this is the billion-dollar packages that go from government to government, but also from the big international agencies to Africa and many other developing countries. And the problem, there's a whole host of problems with that, but in essence it's everything from corruption to inflation and debt burdens and so on. But fundamentally, this culture of dumping aid into Africa severs the link, the democratic link between the individual on the ground in Africa and their government. And so people on the ground in Africa are simply unable to hold their governments accountable.
Joining me now from one of those large international agencies is Paula Curtis, president of Opportunity International, an organization that provides banking services and training to the poor so they can work their way out of poverty. Paula, welcome to Listen Up.
Thank
and
you.
You've heard Dambisa. What are your concerns about her theory that aid should be stopped in 5 years?
It's not about stopping aid necessarily, but it's about understanding how funding is used on the ground. I think allowing people the opportunity to give, whether it's $20 to sponsor a child or to support opportunity, are all really good intentions. But I don't think it's just enough to stop aid. I think it needs to look at the infrastructure in Africa as an example of stopping the aid, stopping the large dumping of grain. What we're seeing in microfinance as being the answer has been empowering and building up at the bottom of the pyramid, the bottom billion. So if we look at infrastructure right now that's basically fractured right at the bottom of the pyramid, that is the challenge to begin to fix that.
Let's go to another clip now from macroeconomist Dambisa Moyo, the author of Dead Aid. I just have this sense that people are at home pulling back their check from their sponsored child. Aren't you, like, couldn't this cause a paralysis of delivery to those who need it most?
No, because my thesis is not do nothing. My thesis is do the right thing. Ultimately, you're more than welcome to send your $20 to help a sponsor a child, but understand that that is a Band-Aid solution, and we have to have humility when we do that, and understand that that is not going to transform Africa into an equal partner on the global stage. What I am proposing in the book, and Dead Aid in particular, is that there are a whole host of things that individuals and governments should be doing instead, which can meaningfully put a dent in poverty. It's everything from trade, foreign direct investment, but on a micro individual level, it's things like microfinance, where you can actually give people a leg up and help them in terms of investment. And that's a very different proposition from handing out aid monies.
Well, microfinance is close to my heart. I'm a member of the Board of Governors for Opportunity International and have traveled with their work. Paula, I've seen, you know, the beautiful work that microfinance does. Help us understand, why is this a form of aid that really works?
We classify it not as aid, but as development. It is not a quick fix. It takes years for microfinance, 3 to 5 years, to have sustainability, to have an economy that is scalable, so that if we're going into a community right now, our largest project in Africa is working with the Gates and MasterCard Foundations, where we're transforming Africa into a breadbasket. So this...
Quite a claim.
It is quite a claim.
And these are all with small loans, $25, $50.
They're more in the, we say about $138. Repayment for the farming community would be larger. But we're looking at actually taking farmers growing crops which are sustainable in their environment with the idea of creating long-term sustainable employment. And this is with the bottom billion. So we have heard about the missing middle, which are factory-oriented initiatives, which are extremely important. But at Opportunity, we're serving the poorest of the poor.
Okay, we're going to continue talking a little later in the program, but we're going to just take a break and just check out that middle area and Africa and that whole manufacturing idea. But then we're going to come back to you and talk about what is it that drew you into this and why you are so convinced working with the bottom billion has got great potential. All right, more after this.
Is because I'm appealing to common sense and reason. And I really believe that if people understand that actually the aid that they're giving is hampering economic development, is making people's lives worse, I then hope that they will say, gosh, maybe I can do something else. Maybe I should put pressure on my government to open the markets to play fair when it comes to African agriculture produce.